Umleinen and Blanc Gemara, days Daf, third day of Hanukkah is Daf Lamed, Ches Amid Aleph, and we are in the middle of a discussion in the Mishnah talked about that there are certain exceptions where if we damage an animal of theirs, we're not responsible. So we are up to the Gemara here on Daf Lamed Ches Amid Aleph, and the second line from the top of the page. The Mishnah said that if an animal of a Jewish owner gores an animal of a goy who lived in Israel under our dominion, we don't have to pay them. But if their animals attack us or gore our animal, not only do they have to pay, but they pay the full nezik from the outset. I mean, what's to know what the logic is? Because yesterday we learned that when it comes to Hegdish is excluded because it says the word re'eyu, your friend, and Hegdish is not your friend. Says the Gemara, Amri Gemara asks the same question. Either or. If it means your friend, and therefore the Kanani so excludes a goy is not our friend. Refers to Eden. The Kanani so then if a goy attacks a gores and eats animal, why does he pay? It's only with friends these didn't. And the if it says friend, it doesn't mean exclusively Yidden, but anybody, any other person, except Hegdish, because Hegdish is not really a friend. And I feel so even a Yid, Kinoga the Kanani, if our animal goes theirs, then the Chai, we should have to pay. Omar Rabavur, who answers? Omar Kra. And Babu answers a special pasuk here, and that is that really they have to pay us because they're included, but we don't pay them for another reason altogether. Because it says in pasuk Omar that the Chabak he stood up, he measured the land. He saw goyim. He saw and he permitted goyim. What do you mean permitted goyim? He saw Sheva mitzvah shekibah b'nei. He saw that the 7 mitzvahs b'nei that goyim were mandated to observe. But because they didn't observe the 7 mitzvahs, Amar Hashem said, you know what? The heat did my money in Israel. I'm going to allow their money. I'm going to release their money and say that Eden can keep their money. So even though technically, if we damage their animal, we should be paying. But Hashem said, you know what? I'm going to make it hefker. You don't have to pay for it. Tosfos and other Rishonim, there's a big machlekes. We'll have a Gemara about Sanhedrin. Also mentioned later about Bava Kama. If according to the Torah, if Gezel Akum is mutter, can you steal from a guy? No, of course, Dina Malchus Dina, you have to follow the laws of the land. But let's say there's no law of the land. From the Torah's perspective, it says Le Sigzel. What about a guy's money? So one opinion is in the Gemara that from the Testament and Sanhedrin that Gezel Akum is permitted. It's only Asam Rabbanon, and also because it causes Chil Hashem. And the other opinion says that Gezel Akum is Asam. Tosfos over here and other Rishonim learn since the Gemara used a special pasuk to permit that you don't have to pay for the damages, but means otherwise, you're not allowed to take their money, you're not allowed to steal their money. So from here is a proof that Gezel Akum is us. The Ranis and Hedron is exactly the opposite. He uses Gemara to prove that Gezel Akum is mutter. He said, what does the pasuk teach you? That their money is considered hefker as a punishment for not observing the 7 mitzvahs, and therefore if he takes the money, it's not considered a geneva. But most of Hashem totally disagree. There is a famous question. The din is that you're not allowed to steal from a goy. Paskin Gezel Akum is also either Mahatreim or Rabbanon. But there's another concept called Hafkos Halva Osai. Hafkos Halva Osai means that a goy lends you money. If a yid lends you money, we learned in Gemara Ksuvas that Beis, that Papa says, "Free is Balchay mitzvah." There's a mitzvah to pay your Balchay. There's a mitzvah. Is there such a mitzvah when it comes to a goy? Since the money came to you legally into your possession, do you have a mitzvah to pay back? Forget about the din machos din, which you have to obviously pay back, or chil Hashem. But as far as mitzvah to pay back a chayv, do we have a mitzvah? The din is hafkos halva asa is not asa from the Torah. So then, why do we need a pasuk to tell us that if our animal damaged their animal, that means I have a debt? Well, hafkos halva asa is permitted. So one of the answers given is if we say the hafkos halva asa is not an avera, I still owe the money. I have the debt. Just you cannot force me to pay it, but I still owe the debt. Oh, so if the goy, let's say, comes and confiscates the money, he's entitled to it because I have a debt to him. But here we're saying that yate that it became completely permitted, which means I don't have a debt. If my animal damaged the goy, you don't have a debt. And we'll talk about it more later. So I think further, that's one pasuk. I bring another pasuk. It says, and Hashem revealed himself from Harpara. And Rashi says he went to visit all the different nations to see whether they accepted Torah. And Ramasha adds, he went to Esav. They said, what does it say in the Torah? Their sister don't kill, not interested. Went to Yishmael, what does it say? We're not interested. Harpara is where Yishmael is. and therefore it talks about stealing about money. So therefore, Haifiyah Mahaparan, you came back from Haparan, they refused to take the Torah because it says like Sigzil. Haifiyah Mamani Yisrael. So that's what he said. You know what? Their money, because that's what happened, their money is permitted to Eden. Others say the word mahar can also be read moyar. Moyar is a dowry you give, which is money. So Haifiyah was revealed, was opened up the money from Paran. Now, Paran is one of the names of Midbar Sina. That actually Midbar Sina has 4 different names, but it depends from which side of Midbar Sina we're looking at. Paran is from one end of the Midbar of the Sinai Desert, where that's the end is where Yishmael lived. And yes, we have 2 different psukim that that even though technically if we damage their animal, we should be paying, but we don't have to because Hashem would make their money hefker. We don't have to pay it. Tanya Magri learned Shosha Yisrael, Shosha Kanani, Potter, but Shosha Kanani, Shosha Yisrael. But if a guy's animal hit ours, Ben Tam Ben Move Mishal will pay the full amount. And it says Amad Vayimoyed Edit, he measured Rav Vayate Goyim, and it says Haifiyah Bahar Paran, that and the logic why the guy has to pay the full amount is either as a penalty or because the pasuk which talks about muad doesn't make any qualification about re'eyu, so they pay muad, and the pasuk of re'eyu is only talking about a tam. What's interesting is the Rambam. The Rambam says that a goy damages has to pay, but we don't have to pay for the goy. And the Rambam says that we follow their laws, and since their laws are maybe you don't have to pay, so then therefore we don't have to pay either. Anyway, my another pasuk. He tell me, "Hi, Ahmed, by edits the very first pasuk that you brought from Habakkuk. We needed to teach you something else, something Rab Masa taught us, something Rabbi taught us, which will tell you in a minute what that is. So, if I bring another pasuk, the money became permitted to Eden from Harparim. What's the story? What's this Rab Masa? What's this Rabbi Yosef? Masa said. It's all to do with the fact that the people in the world did not observe the 7 mitzvahs. You saw the 7 mitzvahs, like Kaimim, it didn't observe them. So we're talking about over here is that if a goy damages a yid's goy's animal, damages each animal, he has to pay full nezik. But if a yid animal damages a goy's animal, you're potter. We're trying to understand why you're potter. So we're answering you. Technically, you should pay. It's a punishment to the Bnei Noach because they didn't keep the Zayin mitzvahs Bnei Noach. And we bring 2 different psukim that because they didn't observe the Zayin mitzvah Noach, Hashem said, you know what, their money is hefker, and therefore we don't have to pay it back. So now, with the very first pasuk we brought, which is Vayatze Goyim, that he released the Goyim, that he took away their money, we actually learned 2 other drashas from it, but they all revolve around the 7 mitzvahs Bnei Noach. About 7 lines in the middle of the page. So Sheva mitzvahs shenistava lein Bnei Noach, and the lake Kaimum, and they didn't keep it. He expelled them from their land. Some say that Sancherib who came and chased everybody out of their countries, and Rashi brings other examples of nations who left their country. And that's what the word Vayata means. He expelled them from their land. How do you see the word Vayata means he expelled them? It says that when it talks about kashrus, it talks about the different rodents that are the 8 shirotzim that are forbidden. It says there, what's the role of shirotzim? They have legs, that they use to travel around the land. And the targum is to jump, which means they leave their original place, like they're going into exile. Okay, so that's what the pasuk is being used for, because they didn't keep the Zayin mitzvah, they're being chased out of the land. And what's the Rabbi Yosef add? My Rabbi Yosef, the Rabbi Yosef, Omad vayimoyed eretz ra. Ma'ra, what did he see? Ra sheva mitzvah shekibla lemenay, the 7 mitzvahs ben noach makabel. Interesting how we use constantly the word that ben noach or makabel. The same expression we have on Purim that we accepted the Torah. It doesn't say that they to foisted upon them, mandated. It's the people of ben noach said, you know what? We realize that we have to behave in a civil way. And therefore, they accepted upon themselves. Kiblu aleim. Very interesting, this expression, kiblu aleim b'nech. Because we learn Zayin b'nech, we learn Sanhedrin, the whole sugya from Zayin onwards. It says, Vayitzav Elokim, Hashem commanded. Sounds like it's like our mitzvahs, but they have 7 mitzvahs and we have 613. But here it sounds like shekiblu aleim, that it was a voluntary thing and they took it upon themselves. So if it's a voluntary thing, then we can understand why the Eibusha can take it away. Because everything that's the Eibush comes as a command is always. The Eibush is eternal, his commands are eternal. Like Abayas, Torah will never change. But if it's a voluntary thing that they took upon themselves, they change it. And why am I saying that? Look at the next Gemara. They didn't keep the 7 mitzvah nech. Omad v'hitilan. Hashem took away the 7 mitzvah nech. Says the Gemara, he's good. They gain. Not keeping it to make life easier. Is going to pay sometimes to sin because then you benefit no more mitzvah. They still have the same mitzvah. but they won't get the full reward. So right now, the Gemara thought you get no reward at all. The Lord, no reward at all. But Tanya, we learned, I feel nachri, if a guy learns Torah. The Torah about the 7 mitzvahs. We treat him like a kohen gadol, and takes as an exaggeration, but it means that it's very special. A person will do it and you live with it. It doesn't say kohenim. Talking about the Torah mitzvah, it doesn't say kohenim or levim Yisrael. Adam. Adam is a generic term. So what do you tell me they have no schar for keeping the 7 mitzvahs? Amri, we say, they don't get the full schar. Like someone who's doing on a voluntary basis. Far greater, somebody who's instructed to do something, than a volunteer. Because a volunteer doesn't really have so many obstacles. Somebody has to do it, every obstacle becomes a mountain. Every mode becomes a mountain. Now, big machlek is a shainim. So what happens to mitzvah b'nei? There are many panu in Israel. The Shuvas learns that there's no longer any mitzvah b'nei. It was taken away at all. And if they do it, it's like a volunteer. There's no mitzvahs. The Rambam clearly learned the Slav mitzvah b'nei, and the Moshe Rabbeinu was told us that we have to make sure that the goyim follow mitzvah, and they should do it not because it makes sense. They should do it because Hashem told Moshe Rabbeinu. So it seems. Now, no proof of this, but it seems that Rameh understood the Gemara Kibla Lane. The whole thing was on a voluntary basis. They didn't deserve it anymore. Take it away from them. There's nothing left. The Rambam learns like we're learning Gemara Sanhedrin. It sounds like it was given to them that they have to keep the mitzvah there, because once Hashem gives, doesn't take it away. But what he did take away is the full schar. They get only a partial schar. Fascinating argument. Now, very interesting. The Traces asked the question. Every time it says Adam, we say Adam and by Kivrei Akum and not Matami, because let's look at Adam Kiyam Royal, Adam like Goyim, like Akum. And here we're saying that Adam includes Goyim. We're saying that if Ashayasa Isa Adam Chaybem. So Taisa said there's a difference between Ha-Adam and Adam. And the difference is as follows. So the other Shainim explain. Adam is coming to exclude Adam and not somebody else. Ha-Adam is saying within Adam itself, we're going to exclude some part of Adam, and we have a rule: Ein miyut acha miyut el rabas. You have 2 exclusions, one after another. It actually comes to include. So Adam on its own it means not goyim. Adam means Eden and goyim. Fascinating is that in the Mendel Bayless case in 1911, 12, 13, and many rabbanim were involved, including Rabbi Rashab, and from all over the world to defend Mendel Bayless of being accused of blood libel and all that. So one of the questions that the prosecutor said is the Gemara clearly says Adam matim v'lo yu'umas olam nikrayim Adam. What kind of religion is that? And we're not people. And there's one rabbi there, and I don't remember his name. He was not a very famous rabbi. Asked, can I answer? And he got up and said the following, which is a brilliant word. He said, "What do you mean Adam matim v'lo yu'umas olam nikrayim Adam?" He says the different titles for people is Ish, Enosh, Gever. All of them are written in singular and in plural. You can have Ish, Anoshim, Gever, Gaborim. The only word that cannot be in plural is Adam. Whether it's singular or whether there's 100 people, there's always Adam. And so he said like this: by Goyim, you have 70 nations. If a person in Russia is suffering, American persons can come running over, not at all. But by Yidden, no matter how many Yidden are in the world, we're always Adam. We're always one. So is Mendel Bayless sitting in Russia? I'm from America. This guy here is from Ukraine. This guy here is from this country here. We're all here because we are one unit. And that's what the Gemara means. Adam, Atem, Adam. We're the only ones that will always remain single, no matter how many we are. They loved it. It was actually it was a brilliant answer. Anyway, so anyway, let's continue. Talking about it further, Tana might be learned. Continue in this theme. Interesting. The king of Rome sent Shnei Sardi, 2 officers, to the Jewish people. We want to learn your Torah. The real reason why they learn the Torah is they want to find where the Torah, that denigrates others or treats others, inferior and so on. Karu, Vishanu, Vishoshu. They learned once, twice. The teacher wants to know how can they teach Torah to a guy. I'll teach Torah to a guy. So one answer to is they pretended to be Gerim. They thought they were real Gerim. And the other answer to is that when it's a sakana, you have no choice. So the Rishonim say, others say, why didn't they just change a few facts? Sakana is a rai that even sakana, and you're in danger of your life, you're not allowed to tamper with the Torah. You're not allowed to change any laws in the Torah. Even though in the Septuagint they made 10 changes, we're having more in Megillah, but the changes didn't affect any halachas, any outcome, just words that they use. They shouldn't insult this, they should this, they shouldn't make a mistake, breishim or lakim, so they changed lakim bar breishim. They made changes, but didn't change any of the content of the Torah. Here, to change a law to satisfy the goyim, or to hide, or to mask what the Torah says, you can't do that, even b'shas sakana. Anyway, b'shas p'sheras, and about to leave, Amalehem, these two officers said to the rabbis, Dikdaknu b'chol Toraschem, we went through the entire Torah, but Dikdaknu, word by word, the emissaries, we come to the conclusion the Torah is true. Chutz medava said, there's one law in the Torah that is so unfair. You say, if we damage their cows or oxen, we're potter. Not only that potter, they got to pay full price. If the Torah says you damage your friend, it means only your friend's not a goy, then both ways are going to be potter. If you look at, you can know you're solely potter. If a goy tax us, should be potter. If everybody's included, and that's why if a goy tax us, they have to pay. Then I feel he's only not going to get out of the chai. Then we should pay when they damage their animals. Yeah, well, they learned 3 times. The third time is like getting it. The dove is interesting. They chazed 3 times. Shows you here, chazing twice is not good enough. Minimum of 3. The dove is ain't on the madim oislam. But you know what? We're not going to tell the king. We're not going to tell the king. Now, interesting. Rashi says one thing doesn't make sense. And Rashi says the words "V'heim lagil lehem time shel dove." They did not reveal them the reason minor shel knani v'cheskes have knasakon. It's not clear from Rashi who didn't tell who. The rabbis didn't tell these people the real reason behind it, because that might make things worse. That the money means nothing. Or these people knew the reason. They said, we're not going to tell the government, because if we tell the government, they're going to get upset. Whatever it is, they saved us. And it says in some version bring up from Yerushalmi, where it says that the Eibishter made them forget that halacha altogether, because you can never rely on them. One day they might change their mind. Anyway, says the Gemara further. Rabbi Shmuel Bar Yehuda, fascinating Gemara now. Rabbi Shmuel Bar Yehuda, Shchivele Bar, his daughter died. The Rabbana said to Ul, Kum Nezel and Achmed, let's go and visit him and console him. Amalahu, he said, no way. Ula said, I am not going to go to a Babylonian and console him. My Isli Gabe Necham to the Babylonian. How can I go ahead and console any Babylonians? The way they talk is heresy. But this is what they say when we console a Babylonian. Say, what can we do? That's life. The inference is, but if we could have changed things around, Avdi would have changed things around. So we have a machlekes here between Ul and the Rabban. The Rabban did go console him. And when I say machlekes is because the Mashal says the halach is like the Rabbanon, not like Ula. And Shulchan Aruch Ramah Pasuk is like Ula. What's going on here? There's a saying that lately invaded our people as well. We say, it is what it is. That's what we say. It is what it is. As if to say, we have no control. But if we had control, we would definitely make things different. There's a famous story between the Alter Rebbe and Rabbi Leitch. Rabbi Leitch said, if I was Hashem, I would do everything different. I'll make the sick well. I'll make the poor rich. I'll make those who are, who have a shidduch, and goes through every problem in the world, every deficiency, and says, I would change it around. And the Alter Rebbe said, if I was the Eibishter, I would do exactly what he's doing right now. I'm sure he knows what he's doing. Exactly the argument here, Ula and the Rabban. Ula says that if you say you're going to change things around, that means you're saying that the Eibishter is making a mistake. He's doing something wrong. And that is heresy. And Rabbanan said, no. Comes along the Ramah and Paschal Shulchan Aruch. You're not allowed to say, and I'm paraphrasing it, it is what it is. Because what you're really saying is that you have no control to change it, but I would. I mean, the Eibush is doing something wrong. The Eibush is iniquitous. We know that Kela Muna ve'ein Ovel, which says in Pashas, the Eibush, just because we don't understand, nothing Hashem does is wrong. Just because we don't understand. And the Taz explains beautifully, Davar Melech was different. So here we have and so there are more passing Allah Maisa, which seems to me that the expression "it is what it is" is totally forbidden. Is called giduf. It's the worst kind. It's like your blasphemy. That's what it is. Which is anyway my interpretation. But you look at Ramah and Shulchan Aruch, Siman. It's a fascinating Ramah and Taz. Siman Shin Ayin Vav in Yeridea, which the laws of Avelis, Siv Beis, the end of the Ramah and the long Taz. The Gemara continues. But look at the consolation. Again, the consolation. It doesn't say the name of the rabbi, but he went on his own. Amalei, this is what he said to console the guy. Hashem said to Moshe, "I'll touch his Maya, sorry, yeah. Moshe, I'll touch this Maya, don't oppress Maya, I'll and don't, antagonize them. The Milchama war. The Malo died to Moshe last Milchama. Moshe was thinking, what Hashem was warning him, don't think about going to war. Moshe think going to war. Yes, this was going through his percolating in his mind. Hashem just told me attack Midyanim. What? How did they participate? A tacit agreement with Moav. It was Moav who hired Bilam. Balak ben Zippor hired Bilam to curse the Eden. Midian was in the beginning. Then they left. They were just they were a silent majority. They didn't do anything. So they bought Laz as Moav, and all they did was they came to assist Moav. Yet Omra tried to Tzurayus Midyanim. They were just merely passive partners. And yet it says, look, what you have to do. You have to destroy them. Moav the Moav themselves who initiated the whole thing, like Kolshka and surely they should put it. That was going through Moshe Rabbeinu's mind. Hashem said, he says, not what you think is what goes through my mind. I have two wonderful young women who are going to descend from these two, from Moav and from Ammon. Ruth HaMoaviyah and Naam HaMainus. Naam HaMainus is the one who married Shlomo, who's the mother of Rechavam. And therefore, I'm saving their nations, even though they were much worse than Midian. I'm not going to punish Moav. So what does that tell us? Said this Rav to Rabbi Yehuda Shmuel. One girl in Moav is going to be all right. The Abish has saved, spared the entire nation of Moav. Each one had only one girl. Your daughter. If she deserved to live, if she would have had any yichus, even one good grandchild, a great grandchild, surely she would have lived. If they didn't live, the Abish knows exactly what he's doing. I mean, you tell the guy that you have a daughter that will not produce even one good person forevermore. I guess that's the Chama. But the point of the Chama is exactly what Ula was saying. Not what Ula was saying, why I don't like. He was saying the exact same thing. The Abish knows what he's doing. Not he's saying, it is what it is, and if you could think, we're changing around. The Abish knows exactly what he's doing. And that's the Nechama. Okay. That could very well be. But so then if you follow the Gemara the way it is, it looks like there's really no argument. He's agreeing. The Mashal makes a whole argument of it. And by the way, I told you that Ramah Pasch is like Ula. The Mashal Pasch is the Rabbanon. Mashal, he brings it from David HaMelech. David HaMelech says, could I come back to you? I'll change things around. If I could change things around, I would. So you see, you could change things around. And the Taz says you totally misinterpreted the Tanakh. It's a very interesting Taz, very interesting Yam Shleima. Anyway, taking it further, so Rav Shmuel Bar Yehuda supposedly was now appeased. Hashem never withholds any schar. I feel a schar sichana, even the reward of a beautiful conversation. I had two daughters. Okay, they meant L'Shem Shemaim. They thought the entire world was destroyed. They're the last two remaining human beings there, and they have to have children. Got to procreate. And they heard all about the flood, how the entire world was destroyed, and thought it happened again. By his doing, the Amra Moav said, look, the older one, she called her son Moav. Why call Moav? A bit hard to understand why she did it. Me'av, to tell the world that this child comes from my father. Why advertise it? I'm not sure. He said, don't oppress them and don't even start a war. He's saying that don't start a war, but Hungary to make sure they work for you and that kind of stuff. You can do that. You can harass them, whatever, but don't engage in war with them. And Seida, but the younger one, she was much more modest. She was number two. The Amra ben Ami, she called it the person of my nation, but did not in any way link it to her father. So much more tznizik. And there, the Abish said to Moshe, you approach Ammon. Don't even oppress them at all. Don't harass them. Nothing. Why? Because she's so much more modest. Just talking nicely, because Hashem does not withhold the reward. So therefore, it teaches us that Abish never holds back a reward. You should always try to be first to do a mitzvah. There were two daughters of light. One daughter had Moav, the next daughter had Ammon. Moav had Rus, and Rus became Jewish 4 generations before the daughter from Moav, who was Naamah, who was married David HaMelech. And Rus was a great-great-grandmother of David HaMelech. So 4 generations earlier. For one night, because they meant Hashem Shemayim. They thought there's no party left alive, and therefore they did what they did. She 1 night earlier to procreate the world, to populate the world. Arba doides kadmasa, arba doides Israel. She became Jewish 4 generations prior. Oivad Yishai David Shlomo. Yilatzida, the younger one, Adrachava. Only after the 4 generations, did Shlomo HaMelech marry this woman. Interesting. There's a beautiful. Didn't have a chance to look at it, but if I remember correctly, there's in one of the introductions of Moshe Feinstein Chuvas, he has a beautiful story in his lifetime about a dibuk that came into this person. Well, dibuk is one of these daughters of light. I have a chance to look it up later. I'll tell you the stories next time. Talk about me learned. What about a kusi? I remember we learned a number of times, Kusi, there's an argument. This is a nation of people, like some Samaritans who were frightened. There were lions roaming Israel, and they were so frightened. So they came to Eden for help, and they converted. And the big argument if their conversion was genuine or just Gedi Aroyas. They did it out of fear for lions. They needed someone to help them, but it was not genuine. Later on, it became genuine, but then later on as well, we found out that they were all worshiping their idol and Har Grizim, so we sort of took away their thing. And we had a number of times, we had Psach and other places, how far, the Kusim, can you trust them? And according to Rab Shimon, the mitzvahs that they took upon themselves are even more religious than our mitzvahs. But some mitzvahs they weren't particular about, especially if the evil is in Michshel. You cannot trust them unless they're going to eat with you, so then they make sure that they don't do the wrong thing. But otherwise, they don't care what they give you. So, gourd the cow of a kusi, potter you are potter. But shall kusi, shenogach, shoy Yisrael, but if a kusi attack, shoy Yisrael, tam, mishalom, chatzit, nezig, mishalom. So they attack us, they follow laws of the Torah. But if we attack them, we are exempt. Rab Meir says no, that shoy Yisrael, shenogach, shoy shall kusi potter. Rab Meir says that shoy of a yid that attacks the shoy get potted. But if a shoy shall kusi, shenogach, so that party agrees. But if a kusi, nogach, shoy Yisrael, bein tam, sorry. In other words, like a goy. In other words, a mayor saying, I don't recognize them as Eden. The first time it says they're like a yid, tam muad. But we don't pay them because they would take care of the animals and so on. It's like a penalty to them. They should be more careful with animals. But the mayor says that they pay nezek shalom. It sounds like the kusim will get the arayis. Remember the sort mayor, kusim get arayis. Let me ask a question. We had kol hapsamim. We know that a kesem is like a stain on the clothing. So, which midrabanan we say that means that she's a niddah. Not matayda. Tayda is only if you find blood on her body, on the clothing is a stain. Kol haksamim, all the stains. Haboyim merekem, all the stains that come from a city called Rekem are tahirim are tahir. Why? Because the vast majority of people there are goyim, and goyim their blood is not matame and only midrabanan. But if it's since by a yid a stain is only midrabanan, then by goyim a stain stain underwear is not matame at all. Rabbi Yehuda is metame rekem. Ipnei shehengerim v'toyim. They're really Jewish. They just think that they're going. They don't realize that they're Jewish, and therefore they discard their underwear. But they're tamei because they're takiyid. The takiyid. Let me continue. What about midben anachim in an area which is all majority of goyim? Then toidim. What's the problem? In a place between that's a population that's mixed, Eden and Kusim. So we asked Taka, because we asked them this, when you ever tell me you found the Kesim? If it's a Goyish place, it's Torah. If it's a Yiddish place, then Eden don't throw their Ksumim outside. So when do you ever become Tameh? So we're saying a place between Eden and Kusim. And or in a place of a Yiddish place, but you found them in a Mokum Hefke, which in all probability does not come from the Eden because they wouldn't toss it outside. They'd get discarded in a way to make sure that nobody becomes Tameh. So the Meir says, Metame. The Meir says Tameh. Why? Because we think that the Kusim, they don't care about the Ksumim, they toss it around. And the Chachamim Metayin. Why? The Chachamim believe that the Kusim also take care of their modest, they take care of the Ksumim and they hide it. Or they launder it, whatever it is. So, but the fact, what does the Meir say? That the blood of the underwear is Metame, which means the full-fledged Eden, because a guy is not Metame. Even Kusim are not Chashur. Alma Kasava Meir Kusim Gedi Emes saying. What's going on here? That they are Gedi Emes. Omar Abu said, yes. Hold full Eden. So how come we make them pay full amounts from the beginning? We made a kanas. and he decided to cancel more than Tanakama. He agrees with Tanakama, we don't have to pay them as a knas because they take care of the animals, but he goes a step further. And if they damage us, you say we follow the normal protocol of the Yid, the process of the Yid, calm and mood. I said, no, pay the full amount straight away, penalize them. So we actually want to separate ourselves because they're a bad influence. So interesting. We want to separate them because they're a bad influence. Says the Gemara, we had the Gemara the following girls, there's a knas if somebody rapes them, you have to pay a penalty, even though they are habol mamzeres. You might think, oh, mamzeres, what's the nope, you still have to pay the knas. Ala Nasina, this nation of Nasina, Machlekes Rashi and Taisus, whether Nasinim are, according to Rashi, Nasinim are only, David Melech was geyser in them, and according to Taisus, Nasinim Osam HaTorah. What David Melech did was he made them avodim, he made them slaves. But the Nasinim are Osam HaTorah, because, they said like the Schatten, which reminds me, if I tell you before, according to Rabbi Yonasan, one of the whole Gemara we had before about the 7 mitzvahs of Noach, and they were expelled from the land, and their money is hefker, and all the whole Gemara is talking about the 7 nations in that show, not the rest of the goyim, which means according to him, the rest of the goyim, of course, the 7 mitzvahs of Noach stay the same, and they get the full schar, which maybe explains the Rambam. Because the Rambam learns, not going the whole thing, he learns the Chaya mitzvahs, and they have a maybe he learns like Rabbi Yonasan that this Gemara is talking about the Zayin Umas. Sorry, I forgot to tell you before. And he mentions the kusis the way you got to pay the money. If Rabbi says, look, we don't want to give them money, so we should make a knas. You know what? They shouldn't have to give them the $50 that you give for seducing whatever it is their girl, because we don't have any shaykhs to them. I'm going to buy it. He says, because that makes sense. The guy doesn't have a with this girl, she's a kusi, and then you can say, you have to pay a penny because we don't like the kusi. That's not that. We don't want that a person to commit a sin to benefit at all. We don't want to benefit at all. Mashain Kane, when it comes to the zikin, now this is interesting. Nu and the zikin, you damage the animal of a guy. We say, what? You know what? You don't have to pay at all because we don't want shaykhs, but they have to pay the full amount. Okay, they paying the full amount is they did the wrong thing and we're just penalizing them more. But we're not paying them. We don't want to pay them. So my animal did damage and it's
like the classes of people that's on the kusim to move away, rather on the burden of the yidden to move away from the kusim.
Okay, I was thinking, there's an argument. Is there an aveda to be mazik somebody? If I mazik you, I have to pay you, compensate you for the damage. But did I do an aveda? Some say it's part of gezel. Oh, it's a basically gezel. Gezel means I took something. I have nothing. I didn't take it. I just damaged your thing. It's still yours. If you can simple pshating about it, there's no aveda. It's a question of paying money. It's a law, commercial law, but it's no aveda, and therefore no question of if I don't have to pay. So here. Or we can say what you're saying here is that here it's on the animal, that the animal did damage. I didn't do damage. If I did something wrong and then I walk away scot-free because we don't like that other person. That's not fair. But my animal did some damage. Maybe we don't apply there. You're a chayte for allowing the animal to do damage, but still, it's not the same thing. Maybe. So we should say, okay, that the Yid should pay the money. You owe the money you damage, but we don't want the guy to benefit. To give it to tzedakah. We should have imam. There's no point in making a law that we cannot enforce. You're going to say, okay, you have to give $100 tzedakah. Who's going to claim it? There's no every poor person that comes to my house, I say I'm going to give to another institution, and which people do all the time. I've given here, I've given there, so that's why we leave it the way it is. Continue tomorrow in Mitzvah Hashem.